Hey Andre, thanks for meeting with me. I know it's a busy week. How are things going?
Good. Just trying to keep up.
Yeah, I totally get it. There's a lot going on this time of year. So I popped into your classroom a couple times this week, and I noticed that you were doing some checks for understanding, which is really great. I love that you're thinking about that based on some previous conversations that we had.
Yeah, I've been trying to add them in.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. One thing I was wondering was, and I'm not sure if this is something that you've been thinking about, but I noticed that sometimes students kept working even if they weren't quite getting the material.
Yeah, some of them may struggle.
Yeah, and I think that's normal. Something to, maybe just keep an eye on. Sometimes when we do CFUs, it can help to maybe pause and kind of regroup if needed. So maybe that's something to think about for next class. How's that sound?
That was good.
Okay. Well, overall, you're doing a lot of really good things. I just want to keep supporting you. So, good job, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Cool. Well, just let me know if you need anything.
All right.
Andre, thanks for meeting with me today. I want to follow up on the action step that we agreed upon 2 weeks ago around checks for understanding during your guided practice. My goal today is to look at what's been working and what needs to tighten up in your classroom so that errors don't continue. In our last conversation, we aligned on incorporating at least two checks for understanding and adjusting instruction based on what students show you. In the two walkthroughs that we conducted this week, I observed one CFU in each lesson. After the first CFU, 8 students answered incorrectly, but instruction continued without a reteach. Those same 8 students continued to practice with some errors in their work. When that happens, misconceptions can solidify and students can leave the classroom not having mastered the objective, and even worse, leave not knowing how to do something. So this really impacts mastery and increases your reteaching time later on down the line. And that's why those CFUs really matter. So tell me how you're seeing this play out in your classroom.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize how many were off. I thought most of them actually had it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It can be hard to see in the moment when there's a lot of things going on in the classroom. And so we had agreed upon you doing the two intentional CFUs and aligning the adjustment if more than 20% of your students were incorrect. And right now, that adjustment piece isn't consistently happening. So we need to make sure that we tighten that up. So tell me what's getting in the way of just pausing for a second and adjusting instruction in the moment after you do a CFU.
Yeah, I think I feel rushed trying to get through the lesson with the time constraints.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I appreciate you lifting that up, especially with the snowpocalypse that just happened and the pacing guides being adjusted, and then TCAP coming up. I'm sure that you feel a sense of urgency on making sure you get through it. Well, let's just focus on next week. So here's the shift that I would love to see. So during your guided practice portion, after your first check for understanding, pause and really look for student responses. If more than 3 students are incorrect, then I think that's your time to stop and reteach before moving forward. Why do you think that that would be important at that part of your lesson to do?
Yeah, just reflecting back, if it's more than three that are struggling or raise their hand or have a misconception, if I'm rushing through the lesson, then I can see how that can impact me later on in that lesson when I'm still having to take time out of my day or that lesson to fill those gaps. And so if I can do a CFU there in the moment, it gives me more information on, what I need to do before I move forward.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you really hit on it. And then it doesn't stress you out later on the line. So, how do you feel if I come into your classroom next Thursday and look specifically for that move? And then after that, we can, debrief for 10 or 20 minutes just to see how that felt. I know that you've been working on the planning side of your CFU, but I'd love to come see it in action. Would that be okay if I stopped in next Thursday?
Yeah, I think that'd be great. My planning is around 10 a.m. So if you come to the class before then, that way I have time to debrief with you. That'd be great.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I know you've got that second period class that you've been working really hard on. So I think that'll be a good time. I'll lock it into the calendar. I'll shoot you a calendar invite just so that you know it's happening. You're strong in lesson planning. So I think just tightening up that execution move will really help student mastery. And I'm confident that you'll be able to get this tightened up in your classroom, and then we can celebrate and debrief afterwards. I appreciate your time, Andre. If there's anything else that you need support in, just let me know.
I appreciate it, Jeremy. Look forward to seeing you on Thursday.
Awesome, man. Hey, Andre, thanks for meeting with me today. I want to follow up on the PLC alignment around explicit modeling and checks for understanding before the independent practice in your lesson cycle. And I want to look at how that's showing up in your classroom and what adjustments might be needed to continue building your practice. In two walkthroughs this week, I observed your model annotation for about a minute without narrating your thinking explicitly. Students then moved into independent work without a check for understanding. And then on the exit ticket, 14 out of 23 students struggled to cite the text evidence accurately. When we don't make the thinking visible and checks for understanding don't happen before you release them to the independent practice, then misconceptions are going to surface in the exit ticket instead of during the lesson. And that's likely going to contribute to the results that we're seeing on our interim assessments. And so I want to make sure that we tackle that in the moment when we have an opportunity and don't have kids leave the classroom not having mastered that skill. But from your perspective, tell me how you're seeing this play out in your classroom.
I mean, I've been teaching this standard for years. Like my kids usually get it. That exit ticket might have just been like a day that they were off.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be. I mean, we've had some disruptions in the calendar. There's no doubt about that. I think one exit ticket alone wouldn't be a concern for me. But I've seen a pattern across a couple of walkthroughs, and the exit ticket data really just suggests that there's some instructional pieces getting lost during the lesson.
Hey, but if I stop to reteach every time just a few kids miss it, like I'd never be able to get through a lesson.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I hear you. That I think there's a real pacing concern there, and I think that's something that we can work together on for sure. Um, I think the expectation that we aligned on during the PLC was that if more than a fifth of the students were incorrect, then we need to pause and adjust. And in this case, this particular case that happened, that threshold was met, right? So more than a fifth of your students weren't tracking you, and they drifted off during that lesson, and the exit ticket shows that. So we need to make sure that that expectation stays strong.
Yeah, I hear you, but some of those kids just don't try, right? And I can't slow down the entire class for just a few kids, and it's the same kids every time.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I hear the frustration. I think that when nearly 60% of your students are missing the evidence correctly, it really suggests that that's not just effort, right? There's something happening in the modeling phase, and that is the piece that's within our control. So we can't control, every single student behavior that we see, but we can certainly control the clarity of the modeling, and that's the part that I really want to focus on today. So here's the shift that I would love to see next week. During your modeling portion, narrate your thinking explicitly. So, for example, I'm choosing this sentence because it directly supports the claim, and here's why. And then after modeling it and before independent work, I want to see you ask a check for understanding that requires every student to identify a sentence and justify it. At that point in your lesson, if more than four students get it incorrect or are hesitant, then I think it's an opportunity to pause and reteach before you move forward. And I think what you'll find is when you're able to do that successfully, the student participation is going to increase because they're going to feel set up for success.
Yeah, but that feels so scripted. Like I don't want to be in my class feeling like a robot.
Yeah, I think that's natural. It's going to feel very structured at first, and you certainly have years of experience and you have your flow. And my purpose here isn't to script you out, it's to make your thinking visible. You bring such a deep content knowledge that I think students can really benefit. And when they see how you think about it and they can internalize it, that's going to become routine for you. And then it's going to feel really natural. And then it's going to set students up for success. So, we know right now the current approach isn't producing consistent mastery. And so I want to help you make that adjustment because I know you want your students to be successful. So let's talk about what it might sound like in your room next week.
I guess I can say I'm underlining this sentence because it connects directly to the claim, and then ask them to do the same.
Yeah, I think that's really specific, right? And such an easy shift. And I think you've got strong classroom management. So once you ask that CFU, you'll get some student responses. You'll be able to see who's got it, who doesn't, and then you can adjust in the moment. So I'd love to follow up with you. I'm going to stop by your room Wednesday during third period, and I'm going to look for two things specifically. I want to see your explicit think aloud in your modeling portion of your lesson. And I want to see you capitalize on a CFU before you release your students to independent work. And then right after class, we can debrief for just a few minutes so that we can see how things went. You're really strong at classroom culture and student engagement, Andre. I think tightening this model is going to really increase mastery, and I'm confident that you can make this shift. We both want what's best for your kids. And I think that this will be a really good adjustment.
All right, I hear you. We can do it.
Okay, I appreciate that, man. Yeah, I'm really excited to see this in action. And if there's anything you need between now and next Wednesday, just let me know. And then I'll shoot you a calendar invite and come see it in action.
All right.
All right, thanks, Andre.